second look at SQL select statements includes functions like count and sum and average. These are called aggregate functions. This database SQL tutorial is part of SQL in simple English. Aggregate functions and some maths. Okay, so we're going to open a database again and we're going to look at the tables, and particularly we're going to look at the column of the score today. So we open a database, we have our table called friends, if you remember, where we have our name, surname and score. So we look at the data, we have name, surname and score. So if we want to write some SQL to see all of that, we can do a select statement, select all from friends, where we use the asterisk for all. Press the run and we can see our 4 lines of data, our 4 rows of data. Just to make sure the SQL, you can see that, I'm just going to change the font size, so hopefully you'll be able to see that better now. Okay, so we're going to look at what we can do with numbers and what's called aggregate functions. So let's look at our score from friends. We've got 4 scores, 53, 64, 23 and 71. Now if we want to add 1 to them, quite straightforward, we'll just add 1, and that adds 1 to each score. We can multiply them. So if we want to add like 10% to each score, we times by 1.1, we use the times, the asterisks. We can do any kind of math symbol to change our score. Divide by 2, so here we have the scores divide by 2. And we can even just do some maths. So we've got the scores and another column called 1 plus 1. Where we just add 1 plus 1. And finally, modular gives us the remainder of a score. So if we just look at the scores and then the modular of 2, so if it's an odd number it's going to have 1, if it's an even number it's going to have 0. So we can see that that's correct. So back to our score. We're going to look at these aggregate functions. So these are quite straightforward. Here's to get the top score, the maximum score, the highest, and that's 71. So we just write that and we score in brackets. The lowest would be minimum, so min, bracket, score, close bracket, that's minimum. If you want to find the average, it's AVG, average. We can get the average of the score, 52.75. If we want to add all the scores up, we can use sum. So here we have sum, and the total of the scores comes to 211. And if we want to know how many there are, we can use count, and that will count how many rows that the condition meets. So count, if you're doing all the table in this example, we'll have 4. If you run something like the average with the score, it will just print the last score and the average. It won't print all the scores. So you can do that, but it's not really clear what you're trying to do. So if you want the average times by 10%, we can do that. So you can mix the aggregate function and the maths if you like. Now notice that the column name isn't very good, and we can use what's called an alias. So if we call this column something like average, then that will change. Be careful though, if you use a symbol like plus, then it's not too sure what you mean. So give it a simple column name. So for example, average bonus is a column name, and then you'll see in the results that that's the same column name as you've given it. So this is called an alias. So in this example, the alias is really just a new column name. You can use aliases for the tables as well. We won't look at that today. So we go back to our scores. We have our 4 scores, and let's say we want to see them in order. That's quite straightforward. We can just do an order by score, and then we have them 23, 53, 64 and 71. If we want to reverse that so the top score is first, we can use descending, order by score descending. Something you might do if you've perhaps got a lot of scores, you just want to see the top 3, you can limit, and that will limit the amount of rows that you return. So if you want to see the top 3, we can say limit 3, and you can see by the results here, this returns just the top 3 rows. The limit 3 means just give me 3 rows. Okay, well done. If you wish to leave a comment, please do so. They're always welcome, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. Okay, thank you. Goodbye.